y'all. It's your girl, Morgan Renee Myers, tuning in with you all for another reading of the Hood Health Handbook. It's a conglomerate. It's written by a bunch of people, edited by a bunch of people. I'm going to pick back up. This is like, I guess, my fourth time reading it live. So I left off on page 57, and I'm going to just hop right into it. I like to do my late night readings. If I'm going to be reading late night, it's going to be on something to help me continue to help myself, because I've been falling off the wagon, but I'm about to get back on, baby. My detoxing and fasting and cleansing. Y'all know how I be. Y'all know when we be acting out, eating the most, doing the most. So I like to read the Hood Health Handbook as a good reminder to help me keep on track and to learn something new. Uh-oh. Hold on. Let me try this light back. One moment. All right. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. Setting Wellness Goals by King Divine Allah. When setting goals, keep in mind certain factors can play a major role in your success. It can be useful to follow the SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely guidelines. Ask specific questions. What do I want to accomplish? Where will I do it? When will I do it? How will I do it? Do I need help with accomplishing my goals? When setting goals, it's important to think of the actions you need to change. Everyone has room for improvement, so we all have things about ourselves that we can change. It's a great idea to take your family medical history into consideration. Know what has and hasn't worked for others. The same may apply to you. Use visualization techniques. Visualize yourself being healthy and see what you need to do to become that person. Create your own slogan or vision statement based on how you will look, feel, and behave. An example would be, I will become a more balanced, less stressed, even-tempered person who makes health a top priority. Next, I recommend you set at least 3 goals based on your vision statement. 6-month or 1-year goals can be set, but 3-month goals provide urgency and encourage you to start today. It is also best to work on only 3 to 5 changes at a time. When we try to make too many changes at once, we can feel overwhelmed and defeated. Determine your internal motivators for change and put them into writing, or say aloud to yourself daily what they are. Excuse me. When I decided to lose weight, my internal motivator was that a lot of females dissed me because I was overweight. I ended up losing over 100 pounds and created an internal motivator. Dang, 100 pounds? How fat was he? I ended up losing over 100 pounds and created another interval motivator. I will never go back to being obese again. You may develop some resentment from your friends and family because of this new lifestyle. They might clown you or feel betrayed and in ways discourage you, but this is just another obstacle, like eliminating junk foods. Let me pause right there. So that can sometimes be a big deterrent, your environment and who you're around. And we just got to stay strong and have discipline if this is, you know, the path that we want to take. Choosing, sorry, I got eczema on the side of my hand. Choosing healthier food options, which is why I'm reading books like this, because I know I need to detox. I'm drinking my coconut water. But sometimes those people around you can be deterrents sometimes, because now you're not going out to the buffets like them, and you're not deep frying everything like you used to. So now y'all don't really got much to vibe on. So you got to be wary of that. They might clown you. You might feel betrayed and in ways discourage you. But this is just another obstacle, like eliminating junk foods. Don't turn them away. Share what you know. Get as much support as you can. If Auntie knows how to cook vegetables and primo exercises, get with them. Figure out 3 things that you can do this week to achieve your short-term goals. Make sure you can achieve at least 80% of this. If you can't, you need to cut back and find something more achievable. Maybe start with getting a salad with your order instead of fries. Or choose wheat or whole grain bread over white. 1 step at a time. That's all it is, y'all. It's about 1 step at a time in moderation. All right, so that was the end of that. Now we on page 58. It's entitled So Sick, How It All Started. We weren't always this ill. We weren't always this way. Original people in their native homelands were typically disease-free, physically fit, mentally sharp, and emotionally sound. That's not my opinion. That's based on historical accounts provided by both the European missionaries and the storytellers and griots or historians of those indigenous communities. The missionaries might have said they were pagan heathens bound for hell, but they sure didn't say we were fat and sick. So what happened? Because right now we're fat as hell and sick as hell. So ain't nobody concerned about where we're going because we're there already. Let me run that back. Let me bump. Let me run this back. Hold on. So I'm on live on Instagram and Facebook. Peace to everybody tuning in. I'm reading this book called The Hood Health Handbook. I typically like to read this late night when I'm up, craving something. And y'all see my face is a little chunkier than usual. And I'm supposed to be plant-based and all of that. Your homegirl been slipping, sliding, dipping, and diving. But I'm ready to come back to the other side. I'm just ready for whole, total body wellness. I do have a personal trainer. Been doing pretty all right with my workouts. Could do better. But I'm just working on discipline and focus overall. I want to feel better in my body. It has nothing to do with, whether I want to be a meat eater or not. It's just in general, I know I need more whole, fresh fruits and vegetables. Detox. We all need detox. It don't matter your diet. We all need to cleanse from parasites from time to time because these meats be having parasites in them. Period. So, anywho, this book is very straightforward, tell it like it is, which is the type of personality I have, so I enjoy it. So let me rewind. This part of the book is called So Sick, How It All Started. We weren't always this way. We weren't always this ill. We weren't always this way. Original people in their native homelands were typically disease-free, physically fit, mentally sharp, and emotionally sound. That's not my opinion. That's based on historical accounts provided by both the European missionaries and the storytellers and griots, or historians, of those indigenous communities. The missionaries might have said they were pagan heathens bound for hell, but they sure didn't say we were fat and sick. So what happened? Because right now, we're fat as hell and sick as hell. So ain't nobody concerned about where we going because we're there already. Well, once they decided we were bound for hell, the Pope co-signed us being physically bound as well. And Europeans told themselves they were saving us by enslaving us. Then again, it was always more about profits than profits. Profits, Profits, than profits. People that know the gospel, Prophets. So then again, it was always more about profits than profits. So let's not give anyone the benefit of the doubt. We were raped, robbed, and ruled for the benefit of those who got rich while we lost everything we knew. In the process of our exploitation and near extermination, there was also experimentation and examination. They cut us up, subjected us to infectious diseases, and tested all their methods on our vulnerable populations. Black and brown people throughout the world were introduced to European pork, European alcohol, European syphilis, and eventually the European diet. I get mad just reading it. You see, everywhere in the world where you find black and brown people with some resemblance of their original way of life, we eat similarly. We eat a grain with a legume as our staple dish. In East Asia is rice and soybeans. In South Asia is rice and lentils. Among Native Americans is corn or quinoa and beans. In Africa is millet and sorghum, teff, etc., and lentils. We eat a ton of vegetables with our meals, and we eat fruit separately as a snack or dessert. That kind of traditional diet is consistent everywhere, except among Europeans. What do they eat? Meat and potatoes, almost no vegetables. And what do we eat? Whatever our oppressors told us to eat. Although Africans and Native Americans had to teach the pilgrims what to eat and grow to survive, the dinner tables have turned. As soon as Europeans were in a position of dominance over us, we started following their lead, sometimes by force, sometimes by influence, but never for the better. Before being dominated by Europeans, original people throughout the world healed themselves using plants and herbs. We taught Europeans how to do this as well. And they found a way to reduce these natural methods to chemical processes, and they did that with food, and then mass-produced them cheaply, only to sell them back to us. Once we started patronizing them for our health and wellness, we soon forgot the old ways, and now here we are. Let me go back real quick, because I saw some people just hop in on live. Hey, y'all. Let me go back to the opening of this. We're reading the Hood Health Handbook, And this book is getting in y'all ass. It's telling us all about ourselves. The opening says, we weren't always this way. Original people in their native homelands were typically disease-free, physically fit, mentally sharp, and emotionally sound. That's not my opinion. That's based on historical accounts provided by both the European missionaries and storytellers, griots, of the indigenous communities. The missionaries might have said that we were pagan heathens bound for hell, but they sure didn't say we were fat and sick. So what happened? Because right now, we're fat as hell and we're sick as hell. So ain't nobody concerned about where we're going because we're already there. Child, if you don't get into it, if this book don't get into it, we taught the Europeans everything. We showed them everything. We showed them about herbs. We showed them about health. And what they do, they turn around. They give us their diseases, their way of life, their dieting, and then sell it back to us. This is too much. This is way too much. Now, here we are. Our interactions with Europeans and the subsequent loss of our original culture coincides with our poor state of health. In the Ghetto, The Making of the Ghetto by C. B's Allah. In white science fiction, you always have stories about UFOs that abduct people, take them away, and perform godforsaken experiments on them. The reason why they tell these stories so well is because they sent their UFO/slave ships to the coast of West Africa and abducted blacks. Then they took them to the Americas and performed various psychological and biological experiments on them. These same aliens from the planet Europe had previously invaded the Americas, looking and sounding unlike anything that the indigenous people have ever seen. In their wake, these white aliens left death and destruction. The end result of this alien invasion is the creation of the ghettos, barrios, and favelas, which to black and indigenous peoples are just like alien planets. The mental and physical health of original people in the Americas is jacked up by design. The ghettos, barrios, and favelas are all environments of limited resources that place stress on their inhabitants. The stress breaks down the physical and mental foundation of the community. Peep this. So I'm not talking from a negative space about people that live in the hood or that people would deem as ratchet, but there is some correlation between how a lot of folks that stay in lower income housing and their moods, their actions mimic one another. And this is by design, as stated. When you put people in a collective space where there is limited amount of resources, food, anything to really survive properly, then yeah, you're going to have certain traumas, patterns that are going to be taking place. So let me continue reading. So this stress breaks down the physical and mental foundation of the community. For original people, living in the hood is like living on another planet without a life support suit. Let's jump back in time and see what went down. So we got Ma'afa, if I'm pronouncing that wrong, or Ma'afa is 2 A's, M-A-A-F-A. The term Ma'afa refers to the transatlantic slave trade. It's important to understand many of the indigenous Africans had been living in metropolitan areas since the Middle Ages, highly civilized and advanced, performing medical procedures Europeans had no clue about, like eye surgery and cesarean births. They were taken from cities and sold to slave traders, often as war captives. So the first layer of mental illness was the psychological impact of war. Secondly, the images of demons in much of African cosmology were white beings, and the sea symbolized the way to the afterworld. These black captives were psychologically terrorized with the fear of being taken to a literal hell. And their journey into slavery was exactly that. They were packed below the decks of the slave ships among feces and rats. Many did not make it across the Atlantic due to these conditions. There are still areas in the Atlantic Ocean along the route of the transatlantic slave trade where sharks frequent because they carry a genetic memory of having fed on the masses of slaves who jumped or were thrown overboard. I gotta sit with that. What? No. There are still areas in the Atlantic Ocean along the route of the transatlantic slave trade where sharks frequent because they carry a genetic memory of having fed on the masses of slaves who jumped or were thrown overboard. Incidentally, there is some evidence that the blacks that survived the Ma'afa or the Middle Passage carry a gene which allowed them to retain salt. They were not provided salt during the Middle Passage, but salt is necessary for such a long journey. The theory is that this salt retention gene left the slaves' descendants vulnerable to high blood pressure due to the high salt diet of modern-day black Americans. There is some evidence that the blacks that survived the Ma'afa or the Middle Passage carried a gene which allowed them to retain salt. They were not provided salt during the Middle Passage, but salt is necessary for such a long journey. This is too much. All right, the invasion. As in Africa, the indigenous Americans were highly civilized. The many city-states in the South America dwarfed anything that existed in Europe at the time. Peace, y'all. I'm reading this Hood Health Handbook. They done got me pissed off with white people. I gotta stop reading this stuff. Oh, they got me pissed off. They got me hot. All right, let me just finish. As in Africa, the indigenous Americans were highly civilized. The many city-states in South America dwarfed anything that existed in Europe at the time. The indigenous people had highly sophisticated metropolitan centers and technologies that were not understood by the white man. Some indigenous societies were so highly organized. Hold on, I see some of y'all just joined. Don't be laughing at me in one days. Look, they said this is the Hood Health Handbook, but it's talking about how like we get to the place of like why our diet is just so trash. Because typically all over the world and other places, Africans included, we have like, you know, some lentils, some quinoa. We have like mostly vegetables with a nice healthy grain. But over here in America, we just took on the European diet. We eat pork. We eat all kind of shit that the Europeans introduced to us. So a lot of things that we're addicted to and that taste good is really not of us. It's just what the Europeans kind of put on us. So let me backtrack real quick so y'all can hear that part. Not that part, but this is the part that got me. It was talking about the damn. It's trying to take us back to how we even got to this point. So it's talking about the Atlantic slave trade. Hey, Moon. It's talking about the Atlantic slave trade, all that. It's talking about the transatlantic slave trade. Oh, wait a minute. There are still areas in the Atlantic Ocean where the route of the transatlantic slave trade, where the sharks frequent, because they carry a genetic memory of having fed on the masses of slaves who jumped overthrown overboard. That shit, I'm sorry, that shit got me fucked up. But since I got y'all here, 3 of y'all on here, let me go back to the very top of the book. And it said, we weren't always this way. Original people in their native homelands were typically disease-free, physically fit, mentally sharp, and emotionally sound. That's not my opinion. That's based on historical accounts provided by both the European missionaries and storytellers and griots of those indigenous communities. The missionaries might have said that we were pagan heathens bound for hell, but they sure didn't say that we were fat and sick. So what happened? Because right now we're fat as hell and sick as hell. So ain't nobody concerned about where we're going because we're already there. Got that coconut oil on tonight, don't you? No, this just my ring light. Don't start. Do not start with me. Moving along. I thought that was interesting, y'all. We fat as hell. We sick as hell. And this why I read this, because this book give it to you like it is. It's written by a bunch of probably a bunch of, I don't know if it's Nation of Islam, but a lot of people that got the last name Allah or Supreme God Understanding. Probably 5%ers, probably a bunch of them that got together and wrote this book. But either way, they be calling shit like it is, and I appreciate it, because it's like when you think about it, you get mad. Like the fact that I know that I've been inconsistent in my plant-based journey and trying to do better and got a personal trainer trying to work out. Clearly my face is fuller than it's ever been. Like, I know there are things that I need to do differently, especially because I'm in my 30s. I don't want to have to deal with, I don't have no health issues now, and I don't want to gain them. Because that's typically what comes along when you're not eating well, not working out, and you getting old. So, but then it's like when you think about why am I so addicted to this stuff? Why is it so hard to just stop eating bad? It's because it was never for me. It was never designed for me to be addicted to this shit. But these they got me addicted. Woo! These Europeans. Lord help me. Help me release anything that's not serving me, including these feelings toward these Europeans that got me fucked up and got my diet fucked up. Please help me get on track, get back on my path to an alkaline lifestyle. Amen. And I say, y'all ain't nobody else mad out there. I'm furious. Moving along. All right. So, what we got? We already talked about in the ghetto, this and this and that. My alpha coming off the slave ship. All right, so the theory. Okay, so now it's the theory that black people. Anyway, stop with the comments about my physique or whatever I got going on. Whether I got coconut oil and froze and shit. We talking about the Hood Health Handbook. The invasion. As in Africa, the indigenous... Okay, I read that already. I'm going to read it again. As in Africa, the indigenous Americans were highly civilized. The many city-states in South America dwarfed anything that existed in Europe at the time. The indigenous peoples had highly sophisticated metropolitan centers and technologies that were not understood by the white man. Some indigenous societies were so highly organized that when it came to time to draft the Constitution and other American documents, the Europeans modeled their documents and governments after the indigenous designs. I am drinking coconut water. It's very good for you. Very, very good and hydrating. But y'all know, typically I'm on that live alkaline. I don't know where my bottle is right now. My gallon somewhere. But I'm supplementing with coconut water today. Whites were not only the invaders to the Americas, and it was not just by technological advancement that the whites conquered. They carried with them many diseases. Let's be clear. We died out because these niggas was nasty. Many of these diseases wiped out whole civilizations. They brought along invasive plant and animal species. Not only did they spread diseases, their dirty asses brought rats to the New World. Rats congregate wherever taste and refuse are found. This has affected health up until the modern day because garbage litters the landscape of any ghetto. Thus, the ghetto is set up to be a breeding ground for rats and roaches, which transmits various types of disease. So y'all see how all of this is falling into play with each other? All of this is tying back in each other. Did you know there's current research analyzing all these atrocities causing long-term generational damage as post-traumatic slave syndrome? Just as many people have genetic predispositions for physical diseases, one can also have a genetic predisposition for psychological illness. All of the biological and mental issues that are a result of slavery have been preserved and multiplied in the crucible of the ghetto. That's a darn shame. Breaking grounds. Now we have whites had to make sure that blacks had their resistance beat out of them. They had to transform them from free-thinking men and women into chattel slaves. They would beat women in front of men, slay babies in front of mothers, utilize various torture devices rooted in the Inquisition. When a person is presented with a dangerous situation, their body goes into fight or flight mode, flooding their body with various hormones like adrenaline and places the brain in a hypersensitive state. This state is necessary for fight or flight. Yet, when you are unable to do either, kept in this state, it becomes detrimental to your body and mind. Talking about the ghetto. A ghetto is basically an ethnic enclave, meaning that it is racially segregated. In North America, the first ghettos were actually Irish, Italian, and Polish. In fact, during the early part of the 20th century, Italians and Eastern Europeans were more segregated from the larger white community than blacks were. After slavery ended and up until the Civil Rights Law of the 1960s, ghettos were formed. Many northern modern-day ghettos were established during the Great Migration in Detroit, Chicago, etc. Blacks, especially, were forced to live in specific areas due to lack of post-slavery capital and sanctioned terrorism by the KKK, lynch mobs, and U.S. government. Rats and cats equal toxoplasma. What's that, Book of Sherm? I'm on both my phones and I'm not near my dictionary. What's toxoplasma? And that's something that rats and cats give off? What you saying? Let me read the footnotes real quick. Though we are focusing on black ghettos, Asian ghettos like Chinatown and barrios for various Latino groups exist. There is an element of upward mobility in these ghettos due to a portion of the middle class and college educated being able to move out into some suburbs. Yet these areas also have a constant influx of immigrants who are impacted by drugs, gangs, crimes, and other stress factors that affects the inhabitants of traditional black ghettos. Okay, good to know. Peace, y'all. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Okay. So the effects of living in the hood. You have limited access to healthy food options. You have limited access to the economic growth opportunities that other parts of the U.S. have, banks, mortgages, etc., mind controlling parasites. Oh my God, really? Oh my God. In the hood, toxoplasma is mind controlling parasites. Oh my God. It all makes sense now, bro. Damn. They done did a number on us, bro. I gotta fast. I gotta fast. Like, this is infuriating me. I ain't gonna hold you. I'm probably gonna read this whole chapter over to myself after I get off this live, because my mind is just blown. It's like I knew, like I've been new, but it's like to say it again, this plain and simple. Oh my God, toxoplasma, not mind controlling parasites. Oh my God. So this is why, because I be getting tight with people. This is why I can't even get mad though. Especially if I know you live in the hood. You not even thinking straight. You ain't even, this ain't even you. These the parasites. The parasites got you acting out. Let's go. So the effects of living in the hood. You have limited access to healthy food options. You have limited access to economic growth opportunities that other parts of the U.S. have, like banks, mortgages, etc., strictly because of location. The schools in your community receive, and I know this, I done worked in schools. The schools in your community receive less funding, have low quality teachers and staff, and a poor curriculum. It's not that the teachers ain't shit. Y'all not paying them shit, and they having to deal with 28 little Ray-Rays and others, but mostly a lot of little Ray-Rays who ain't eating right, who got brain-eating, mind-controlling parasites. Oh, God. And then they not wanting to stick around because it's just so much. So now they got low-quality teachers and staff and a poor curriculum because a lot of parents are not involved in PTA, are not going up there and having their say. It's free daycare. Let's be very, very clear. School is free daycare for a lot of people. A lot of people are not teaching and going over things with their child at home. They're not assisting with homework. They're not reading books to their child. They're not making sure their child they're sending them there so that they don't have to pay daycare. And then when the baby is not on point for whatever reason, they're just getting cussed out because they don't have an A on their report card. They're not being really guided at home. And to be honest, some of these parents can't help their child because they ain't mentally got the wherewithal to really help their child. And it's no tears, no shade. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. Book of Shern said, makes animals plus us tolerant to stress, pain, fear, and death. This too much, Book of Shern. This is too much. It's too much for me. All right, so yeah, the schools in your community receive less funding, have low quality teachers and staff, and a poor curriculum. Your schools are also plagued with few high achieving peers, many health and nutrition problems, residential instability, single parent households, high exposure to crime and gangs, and other factors that negatively affect student performance levels. And let's not forget, it don't even say here, but the school food is trash. I was a lunch lady. I know. You will live with environmental racism. This determines how laws, policies, and practices impact low-income areas. In blunt terms, this is why garbage dumps are always in the poor part of town, why lead paint and asbestos are still in many buildings in the hood, and why there are so many rodents and pests in the hood. You have less access to exercise areas and less information about the necessity of fitness. Your air and water quality are less than everywhere else. You are exposed to a higher rate of violent crime. Have our history motivate you to improve? I am. Learn from the positive and negative and share your knowledge with the community. I am. Moving on. The history of soul food. Big Mama had a big heart attack and you're still ignoring why. Oh. Let's get into this. I know that everyone has their memories of the movie Soul Food. Yet, all I can remember is the message that I got from it, which is that food kills. Big Mama is a symbolic person that is too often seen in the black community. The woman who knows how to cook and is feeding her whole family a slow or fast death. This death is brought on by food that is so-called good for the soul, yet it screws up the body with high blood pressure or hypertension, diabetes, and a host of other preventable diseases. Let's be very clear. A lot of this shit we going through is preventable. Yes, it's something everywhere. It's chemtrails, it's stuff in the water. It's you don't know where nothing's planted. Okay, start growing your own. Start shopping local with local farmers. Try to get as many fruit and vegetable intakes as you can. But let's be very clear. A lot of this is preventable. It's the parasites. It's the addiction that keeps us continuing to eat things that we know don't serve. We know, y'all. Y'all know a smoothie is more nutritionally sound than some crab legs dipped in butter sauce and a fried fish on. You know that. You don't need. We know, y'all. Let's stop playing with ourselves. Because a lot of us, and I'm not judging, you at where you at on your journey, but a lot of us are not having balance and moderation. A lot of us are eating crap, and then are also not detoxing, not getting parasite cleanses, not, excuse my hand, y'all, I've been scratching my hand from eczema, not, doing, what's it called, detoxes, juice fast, some of us wake up eating crap, go to sleep drinking crap, don't take a break. Your body needs breaks. It needs breaks. It needs detoxes. Ain't got an enema, colon cleanse, nothing. Just out here eating all the bad shit. You know a smoothie is highly nutritional versus something deep fried. You don't got to eat deep fried every day. You don't got to eat meat every day. You don't got to eat dairy every day. You don't need half of that shit. But if you're going to do it, do stuff in moderation. Do stuff to cleanse, to help do away with some of the stuff you know you ain't acting right about. Come on now, y'all. This book got me hyped. Back to the history of soul food. So, this death is brought on by food that is so-called good for the soul, yet it screws up your body with high blood pressure or hypertension, diabetes, and a host of other preventable diseases. Because Africans in North America have lost many aspects of their varied cultures during enslavement, holding on to soul food is seen as retaining one's connection to Africa. The truth is that soul food nowadays has been warped, and it ain't the same as it was during slavery. Now that your internet having and library card possessing ass has access to more information, you need to take ownership of soul food. I like this book. Peace, everybody. Peace, Ray. You need to make this heritage cuisine work for you instead of making your whole family diseased and sending them to an early grave. What is soul food? Like jazz, soul food is a unique North American creation that is a direct result of the Ma'afa. Enslaved Africans in North America combined different foods, taking a little bit of this and a little bit of that, resulting in some good eating. The foods involved in soul food came from three main sources. So you got your African sources. Let's be clear. Whites didn't just steal people from Africa. In fact, their brains, they weren't stealing, in fact, in their brains, they weren't stealing people, but resources. A resource isn't only a person. They also stole precious minerals, oils, etc. Along with these resources, whites took food. Africans also brought over a lot of food on their own as seeds that were braided in young girls' hair or as seeds that were embedded in clothing. A lot of these foods could not grow in a European climate, so whites were completely unfamiliar with how to cultivate these crops. Even in the Americas, these crops were totally tended by enslaved Africans. They couldn't do shit without us. One such crop was rice, which grows in a tropical environment that whites could not tolerate. Other crops that came straight from Africa were indigo, okra, sorghum, kola nut, sesame seed, and various melons. Didn't know that. Indian or Native American sources. So we're going back to, there were three main sources that soul food came from. So we got African, Native American, When enslaved Africans were brought to North America, many of them weren't down with being enslaved to white people. Some ran away, others led all-out war and revolts against white slave owners. This brought Africans in contact with the various Indian nations who were in the southeast, such as the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole. In many cases, formerly enslaved Africans that remained enslaved still interacted with various Indian peoples. This close connection allowed Africans and Indians a fruitful cultural exchange. One thing that happened is that Southern Indian foods and cooking techniques like boiling beans and curing meat over smoked hickory found their way into modern soul food cooking. This became a way of preserving some of the cooking traditions found among Southern Indian nations. Then you got your white sources. Whites' primary contributions to soul food were the pig and the cow. In Europe, during colonial times, whites basically used every part of an animal. However, once it was found out that corn doubles as a key source of feed for livestock, white Americans increased their meat production to a degree that was substantially higher than the rest of the world. This led to greater consumption, and the current statistic, which is that Americans eat 3 to 5 times the amount of animal protein than the rest of the world. Because meat was in such abundance, wealthy whites in the Americas could choose to only eat certain choice cuts of pork and beef. Only in the Americas did the notion of eating high on the hog develop. So while it is true that blacks were given the scraps of the pig and cow, the reality is that poor whites were already eating pig intestines, head cheeses, and jowls. Poor whites actually showed blacks how to prepare pig and cow innards. While whites typically season these dishes only with salt, blacks also use various other seasonings, including onion, garlic, bay leaf, and thyme. In terms of vegetables, whites forced blacks to utilize cast-off greens like turnip, beet, and dandelion leaves. Kale, cress, cabbage, and mustard were also introduced to soul food by whites. However, ironically, many of these fruits and vegetables didn't have a European origin. These foods have found their way into Europe via the Silk Road, the trade route that stretches from Europe to the civilized world, Africa, India, Arabia, and Far East, during Grecian and Roman times. So although many consider turnips and beets white foods, they actually come from Morocco, North Africa. Well, okay. I'll read this next page and then I'll be done. Health. There is an emotional connection to soul food that links into part of our own romanticism of slavery. Along with the Christian religion, soul food is seen as one of those ways that helped blacks make it through slavery. So when one speaks out against soul food, they are seen as attacking what many people see as a fundamental part of being a black American. Let's look now at 3 major points. 1, you aren't working like a slave. When a runner is getting ready for a marathon, he or she will eat a heavy meal the night before of pasta. This is because pasta releases its sugar/energy slowly, so when the runner is getting tired down the line, their body can use the pasta's energy as fuel. The marathon runner eats in order to be successful at his or her profession. During slavery, work was from sun up to sundown, often in humidity and heat. The foods that Africans ate were heavy in fat and calories to aid them with this heavy labor. Nearly no one nowadays is working like a slave. So eating like they did isn't beneficial. In fact, it does nothing but push us into obesity and disease. Stop using that excuse. 2, slaves didn't eat 3 big meals a day. They generally had 1 big meal a day that they had towards the closing of their day. They wouldn't have been able to work if they ate huge meals at breakfast and lunch. This is because the body automatically goes into digestion mode, taking energy from the rest of the body to aid in digestion in the stomach and intestines. 3, they didn't eat a whole bunch of deep fried meat every day. Anyone who cooks knows how much time that it takes to prepare meals. Frying and barbecuing meat takes a lot of time. This is time that slave masters did not give slaves. Seeing that slaves were only getting scraps of meat from the slave masters, slaves didn't have a surplus of meat to go wasting every day. The majority of meat scraps were utilized to season pots of greens, beans, and other vegetables. There's evidence that the historical slave diet was heavy on vegetables. Definitely heavier in vegetables than the current American diet. What we also know for sure is that slaves generally ate large portions generally at large portions, I think it meant to say eat, generally ate large portions of meat only once a week. Holidays were another time when slaves ate large portions of meat because the slave masters were having feasts, leaving the slaves with the leftovers. How to make soul food healthy. We're not telling you to throw the baby out with the bathwater. What we are saying, though, is that you can change the game and get your health up. Start off by taking out pork and replacing it with an organic, high-quality meat. If you're not turning vegetarian anytime soon, you can season those greens or beans with smoked turkey neck bones or with Wiley's Southern Classic seasoning, which has no meat or fat. The vegetable base of soul food is extremely healthy. Everything from the greens to the spices is invaluable, so get plenty of that. Also, it's important to leave the lard alone and experiment with baking/broiling to cut back on deep frying. All oils aren't created equal, and some can be heated, some can't. Others have no business on our food, and none should be recycled. See, oils are not health foods. If you're eating like a slave, maybe you're thinking like one too. Dig deeper in history and see the true foundation. All right, y'all. I'm going to end right there. We're on page 66. The next part is our all doctors, mad scientists. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'll holler at y'all later. Peace.